April is Confederate History Month in Virginia. In a proclamation, Republican Governor Bob McDonnell said, quote, "It is important for all Virginians to reflect upon our Commonwealth's shared history, to understand the sacrifices of the Confederate leaders, soldiers, and citizens during the period of the Civil War, and to recognize how our history has led to our present." Well, his proclamation left out a key word in American history: slavery. The Washington Post quotes McDonnell saying there were any number of aspects to that conflict between the states. Obviously, it involved slavery, it involved other issues, but I focused on the ones I thought were most significant for Virginia, and he left out slavery. Doug Waters, the former governor of Virginia, and more recently the former mayor of Richmond, and Jim Moran's a Democratic congressman from Virginia. Governor, you were elected as the first African-American in the country to become a governor, and you've been through that. You grew up there, you're a Virginian. Why are we going back to the Confederacy and honoring in this strange sort of, well, I don't know what the right word is, sanitized way?
Chris, good to be with you as always, but you're absolutely right. That reference to my election some 20 years ago shows you, and showed any numbers of people across the country, just how far Virginians have come from that period. I'm the grandson of slaves, and I can tell you that during that period of time that the proclamation speaks of, almost half the population of Virginia was of African descent. These people were not happy. And when you speak about all Virginians should be happy now about the contributions of those people who fought to dehumanize, to enslave, and still hold our nation apart, fortunately, they lost that war. And fortunately, we've united to the extent that we have a president now, an African-American president. And we've moved past it. This is no period of glorification. Should we recognize the contributions that families made and sacrificed during that period? Yes. Glorification? No. The governor called me today, and I spoke to him. I hope that we'll see some revision relative to either the proclamation or his statement and sentiments.
Well, Congressman Moran, I want to just read some of the language of this proclamation for those who have mixed feelings about this. I don't think you're going to have very long. The way he describes the Civil War, first of all, he calls it the war between the states. It was a war for independence. It sounds like the original war for independence. It was fought for people's homes and communities and the Commonwealth. They were fighting a war of defense, basically. But they were overwhelmed by the insurmountable numbers and resources of the Union Army. No mention of which side may have been right on the issue of slavery. No mention of slavery. Just this, as I said, sanitized version of history. This is like one of those Soviet history books we used to read about where they set it up their way. Your thoughts, Jim?
Well,
Congressman.
Chris, it was written by the Sons of the Confederacy, who continue to refer to the Civil War as the Second American Revolution. You know, James McPherson, as you know, was the eminent historian of the Civil War, has made clear the Civil War was fought because a man who was opposed to slavery was elected president. And that's why the states seceded. They seceded from this country. They wanted to destroy this country so they had the right to own other human beings. And as Doug has said, there were 500,000 slaves in Virginia at the time. And Virginia fought the war so that they could continue to own those human beings. And for Governor McDonnell to suggest that this was not about slavery, to commemorate the Civil War as though this was some, you know, neutral part of American history, this was all about slavery. And these people wanted to destroy our country so that they could control other human beings. And we ought to face up to that, get beyond it, but it's very much related to the first part of your show. This is about appealing to that base who wants to change history and wants to change this country for the worse.
Well, the progress of America has always been 2 steps forward and 1 step backwards. Here's Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann at a rally in March. Let's listen to her. She makes a point that I don't think is defensible.
Democrats said that they were called the N-word, which of course would be wrong and inappropriate, but no one has any record of it. No witness saw it. It's not on camera. It's not on audio. They said that they were spat upon. No one saw it.
Here is a recorded message left for U.S. Congressman John Lewis of Georgia. Our network has bleeped some of the words, but you can easily follow the drift and the sense of venom. You can hear with your own ears the hostility directed at one man, the President of the United States. The hatred is personal, it is hostile, it is racial.
Yes, Phil Best, calling from Smyrna. I ain't gonna get health insurance. Tell it that I ain't getting the health insurance. That God gonna go tell me I gotta get some God health insurance. I ain't paying no God fine. Tell it income, put my in jail if you don't like it. God worth all them other voted for that Obama and all them white trash honkies that voted for that communist socialist stuff. Dumb mother. God, I ain't getting a God mandatory health insurance. Some mother. God, a bunch of white trash honkies. Some of communists vote for the. I ain't gonna fight no God war, so I could be forced to do something I don't want to do. So all y'all. Get John Lewis, God worthless communist.
Well, Congressman Lewis is hardly the only lawmaker to receive this kind of abuse. We saw the man who spat at U.S. Congressman Emanuel Cleaver. We have gotten eyewitness reports of similar behavior as Congress voted on the health bill itself. And Congressman Jim Clyburn, the leader of the House, got a fax with a picture of a hangman's noose, plus calls that his wife has gotten at home. Well, the N-word was used prolifically there, Governor, as you wouldn't be surprised. The language was familiar from the past. It's still out there. It's redolent of the bad old days. But anybody in public life knows these words are not far from the lips of some people. We saw, of course, Congressman Cleaver get spat upon. We have an adequate visual record of that. And I think the Congresswoman should pay attention to that scene. There it is. Amazing. There it is, Congressman Cleaver. Well, he restrained. He was a gentleman. The other guy was worse than I can think about. There he is. He won't even stop with his spittle. Governor, you've been through all this. Why do you think people are going? Is this a play for what's called the Republican base? Is this just clearly aimed at the people who don't like change, or what is it?
I think it's a miscalculation, period. That base doesn't belong any place in forging any what I call majority party or majority manipulation any place in America today. The American people are pastors. Jim Moran is absolutely right. What this proclamation suggests is that that period was something, well, just a little spat. Well, we did the best we could, but we were overwhelmed. And why were we overwhelmed? We were overwhelmed because the right won. If those people had been successful, you and I wouldn't be here talking like we are today. I know I wouldn't be here at all under any circumstance. And so it is revisionist history. Unfortunately, it got its play. I hope the governor sees fit to revise his statements, even revise the proclamation, because if he doesn't, it will be an evergreen story, and it'll be something that will continue to define his administration. He doesn't need that. He shouldn't want that. Virginians are beyond that.
I want to get to the constitutional questions here, gentlemen. And Congressman Rand, I want you to jump on this here. Here's the health care issue, which is still very much debated in this country. Here's Florida Attorney General Bill McCollum, a former colleague of yours who's running. He's Attorney General in Florida, but he's running for governor down there, and he's hitting this issue pretty hard. It's the constitutional duty I have, he says, to protect the citizens of Florida, to protect protected from an unconstitutional invasion of the state. Using words like the sovereignty of the state, the invasion of the state by the North. Then you've got Rick Perry. We won't have to play this again. We've played it so many times. He's talking up secession. We had a Republican candidate for governor down there talking about nullification, interposition. This stuff, Jim, you and I grew up with. We studied it in school. The governor, you lived through it. These words like nullification. I mean, do we have to go back to Dr. King to get some refutation here? Congressman, what's going on? Why are they talking this language of secession and nullification again?
Well, you know, it's human nature, and they fought the Civil War because a man who was opposed to slavery was elected president. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that we have an African-American president who has an agenda. He wants to create equal opportunity for everyone in this country. He wants to make this a greater, more inclusive society. I think he's doing a good job, personally, but they object to who's doing it and what his ultimate objective is, because they think this is their country. I think a lot of this has to do with race, but a whole lot of it has to do with this attitude that government is the enemy. It started back in the 1980s, you know, it sure is defining the Republican versus the Democratic Party.